If cooking isn't really your thing, and cleaning up alien goo is too far-fetched, perhaps some construction work may float your boat. Welcome to the third episode of Couch Surfing, the series in which I review couch co-op games in the hopes of finding the cream of the crop among the overcooked clones. Today's victim is Tools Up, a 2019 co-op game that tries really hard to emulate the overcooked feeling by switching the kitchen with a house and the food with some cement. I'll start by stating the obvious. This is heavily inspired by Overcooked. And I mean heavily. All it takes is one look at the character design to realize this game was very much attempting to ride the chaotic co-op genre Overcooked helped pioneer. However, before you make any sudden judgment, let me walk you through it. In Tools Up, you'll find a house in need of some renovations for you and up to 4 people to take care of. Each level presents you with a new apartment or room in dire need of remodeling. We're talking new floors, fresh paint, wallpapering, laying tiles, and occasionally cleaning up after ourselves whenever a certain clumsy someone spills a bucket of paint or wallpaper glue. It all starts with a blueprint, your one little glimpse at what the room should look like at the end. This outlines which walls need painting, which floors need tiling or carpeting, and which rooms require wallpaper. Every time you need to double check what goes where, or which paint color to use, you have to physically pick up the blueprint. Additionally, every time you wish to rotate your point of view of the apartment, you must also be holding the blueprint. The core mechanic revolves around performing renovation tasks, often in a specific sequence. For example, to tile a floor, players must first pick up a bucket of cement, bring it to the correct room, apply cement to the floor tiles, and then return to get a stack of tiles and place them accordingly. The same general flow applies to wallpapering. Gather the material, bring it to the room, and apply it in multiple stages until the task is complete. Oftentimes, the materials you need will not be available from the get-go, as you'll have to wait for the delivery at the front door. As you and your friends run around, some spills may happen. These must be cleaned in order for the level to be complete, as no job is left unfinished. After completing all tasks, you'll be graded on a scale of up to 3 stars based on how quickly you finished. The timer adjusts based on the number of players, more people, more time, but honestly, it doesn't make much of a difference. In my experience, the time limit is always generous enough that even a mildly organized team can breeze through the levels and still walk away with 3 stars without really trying. And this is where it all goes south with Tools Up. The game is just too easy. It's boring, repetitive, bland. What starts off as a cute, chaotic idea quickly turns into a rinse and repeat chore list. There's very little variation between levels beyond the cosmetic layout of each apartment. The same tasks, tile, paint, wallpaper, clean, show up over and over again, with only minor twists thrown in, like slippery floors, lava tiles, or sometimes multiple blueprints. The new mechanics introduced do technically change the gameplay, but they rarely, if ever, add any actual challenge. It always feels like you're doing the same job. The blueprint itself is nothing but a hassle. What could originally lead to some added difficulty, like forcing players to rely on memory or coordinate who needs to check the plan, ends up being just wasted potential. In theory, if you forget what a room is supposed to look like, you'd need to grab the blueprint to double check. But in practice, the changes are so minimal and often color-coded in a painfully obvious way that you rarely need to touch the blueprint more than once. The other blueprint-related mechanic is equally as useless. Rotating the apartment is technically necessary to see all the walls, but in practice, it's completely avoidable. You can just walk up to a wall, see if it highlights, and move on. And when you do use it, it's awkward, slow, disorienting, and worst of all, tied to holding the blueprint. In fact, I believe the only time we actually felt forced to use the rotation mechanism was in the final level, where there's a huge archway that legitimately blocks your field of vision. If it weren't for the game forcing us to use it, we rarely did. Tools Up contains 30 levels in its base game while having 3 additional consecutive episodes entitled Garden Party. These add an extra 45 levels of content, each episode containing 15 levels and a boss at the end that needs to be defeated. For full transparency, I only played through the base game content, including some time attack levels, which we'll get into shortly. I did not, and after my experience with the base game, will not review the extra content. From what I could gather, the mechanics remain the same, with some added tasks, but apparently the clunky controls remain, and the issues with picking the correct item when a lot of them are lying on the ground are still present. And honestly, even if the extra content did mix things up, I doubt it would solve the core issue. Tools Up just doesn't ask much of you. At its core, Tools Up does not require any communication besides some bossing around that sometimes needs to be done. We look at the blueprint, each person knows what needs to be done, and your backs are turned as you can do most of the work yourself and still succeed, even if there's a somewhat useless teammate in your midst. Although the game does adjust the maximum time of the level according to the number of people playing, it doesn't really matter at the end. It's always too easy, there's no pressure, no real chaos, no moment where everything starts falling apart and your team pulls through at the last second. It's just meh. All the time. Even in the time attack levels. These are a separate set of levels that start with a tighter time limit, with every single completed action adding you more time so you can finish it all. Again, boring, repetitive, bland. The layout and tasks are familiar enough that you can just brute force your way through them. No need to communicate with your teammates, whatsoever.
This is still so easy.
You're not doing anything.
I am. Oh, I don't want to play anymore.
It's an okay attempt at spicing things up, but by the time we reached these levels, Tools Up had lost us. We were checked out. Overall, all of these bits and pieces contribute to the mindlessness of Tools Up, turning it into an easy and forgettable experience. Yes, the art style is cute. Yes, the idea of it reminds you of Overcooked. But all this game made me feel was, remember how good Overcooked is? Yeah, this isn't it. Although Tools Up does have its charm with cute, round characters and goofy falls, I believe that it needed a bit more work and a lot more variation to even come close to Overcooked's heels. And that's really the biggest problem. Tools Up constantly reminds you of a better game you could be playing instead. It never builds its own identity, never pushes its mechanics in interesting ways, and never delivers the kind of chaos or satisfaction that makes couch co-op special. In a genre that thrives on frantic communication, clutch saves, and laugh-out-loud disasters, this one feels like busy work. That's it. There's no urgency, no real teamwork, and no memorable moments to look back on. Just a lot of walking back and forth with buckets.